For folks just chiming in, we were just introducing ourselves. You could do it through the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and share your name, pronouns, where you're coming from, anything that feels comfortable like that, and any practice of love, any self-love practice that you had, that you shared with yourself today, as we get into a radical love conversation. Well, there's some space for more folks to share. And I see some folks putting in the chat. I wonder, Kim, if you're able to read some of those, just so we could hear them out loud for those who can't read them.
Yeah. Maggie says, they, she. Today I shared some new art with some friends and they sent me love back. Grateful for them. Ryan, he, him says painting or reading. Mireya, she, her. And I showed myself love today by taking a nap in between my classes. I love naps. Shakir, bunch of time on the sun, including just walking around and working by a window. Same. I love the sun. Yessie from Pomona, but currently living in Irvine because they're at UCI. She, her, photographer and enjoys photography and working out. Cool. Welcome, Yessie. I'm Kim. I use she, they pronouns. And the way I love myself, I think, is through cooking and making foods that my mom would make me. So like the whole process of saying like, okay, I'm gonna make this, and going to the grocery store and like getting all those things and then calling my mom to confirm. And then writing it down and then making it. I've been really loving that process, and I've been trying to be more intentional about actually writing down recipes so I could, like, I don't know, give them to a child if I ever have one. I don't know. But yeah, welcome. So I'm gonna go ahead and share screen. But okay, can folks see this? Cool. So we have beautiful illustrations by Baby Anarchist, and they are based on our statement of principles at Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. And over the, recent times, as we've brought up in, or we will bring up later tonight, we decided to land on our struggles are interconnected as the principle that will guide us tonight. So I don't know if someone wants to read that or if they can. If they can't, down a read, but okay. I'll just read it. We collectively recognize that movements centered around race, class, gender, sexuality, nation, and disability are inseparable and intertwined, i.e. struggles against racism in the US are inherently connected to liberation movements around the world, such as the struggle against Zionist apartheid and genocide of the Palestinian people. So yeah, we want to welcome Monica from the Palestinian Feminist Collective to open us up today. And we just have some, again, illustrations that love is principled, right? Which I love that illustration. And Baby Anarchist artistic concept comes from the Love Is collection, right? So I feel like it was just so beautifully connected. But yeah, Monica, if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, just in time. Hi all. Again, my name is Monica. My last name is Rumsey. I'm calling in from Tongva land here in Los Angeles. So I guess I'll just start by giving a bit of context about our collective in case that's helpful for folks who might not be familiar. So the PFC, the Palestinian Feminist Collective, is a body of Palestinian and Arab feminists committed to Palestinian social and political liberation. We do this work in a lot of different ways, but really, I think at the heart of our work is this sort of intentional and deliberate confrontation of both systemic gendered sexual oppression and also colonial violence, oppression, and dispossession. So that's just a little bit about who we are and sort of how we're oriented to this work. And I wanted to kind of ground us in sort of the programming or like the overarching trajectory of some work that we've been taking on that kind of brings me here today. It's been really, really exciting to engage in this work, but we launched sort of at the end of last year, but mostly for this year, something we're calling the Feminist Futures Calendar. And so the way that this looks, let me drop a link, multitasking here. Yeah, and the way this sort of works is that we, after reflecting on, who are we? We're a relatively young organization and collective. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. And so, we're still in this process. And, I believe we should always be in the spirit of radical love, ideating in this process around what are our principles, what grounds us to this work, what are the points of tension, disagreement that we find in this work as well. And so sort of in a series of conversations, we landed on these 13 principles. So again, one from last year and then the 12 for this year. And each principle is an opportunity to kind of reflect on, each principle is associated with the month and also is an opportunity to reflect on how we embody these values, right, in the work that we do. So our last month programming was around Palestinian Martyrs Day and talking about, we had an amazing event. I really recommend y'all check it out, but talking about what it means to celebrate this day and how we continue to sort of bring those we've lost into this work and carry them in this work. Which brings me to this month, which, in the spirit of it being Valentine's Day month, I know I'm sure we have a lot of feelings about Valentine's Day, myself included. But, as a sort of like reclamation of this holiday, we wanted to kind of focus on what radical love means to us and how it shows up in our movement work. And the way this sort of kind of developed it's really been quite beautiful because it's kind of been organic and iterative, but it's mostly been me and Nadine Nabir, who works in Chicago, organizes in Chicago, and particularly she organizes with a group called Mamas that does work supporting and fighting alongside mothers and families of incarcerated people in the Chicago area. But they've also been starting to build out sort of cross-solidarity work with folks in Palestine who are also mothers and family members of folks who have been caught up in the, sprawling carceral complex that, is one of the machines that kind of really drives the Zionist state. And so, we were sort of inspired by this like nascent work that's happening there. And I know that Amira also works alongside y'all. I'm sorry she couldn't be here today. She's on a flight. But she was saying how she'd be really excited to bring y'all into this work, given the way that y'all have collaborated with Baby Anarchists on the Love Is series, and also how y'all think about, especially in this working group or this space, think about how gender depression and anti-state violence, anti-surveillance work comes together, right? And so with that in mind, I'm happy to just kind of pivot us to thinking about the prompt questions, but I want to offer a pause here because I know I just said a lot of things and I'm sure I missed some things along the way. So does anybody have any questions about what I just shared? Anything that would be helpful to clarify, or just any other questions that are coming up?
Just where the past collected.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear you. Can you say again?
I was wondering where the Palestinian Feminist Collective is based out of.
Oh, great question. So we're not tied to a specific geography other than Palestine, really. And by that I mean, we're mostly on Turtle Island, and I would say within that mostly in the US, but all across the US. We also have some folks in Canada and the UK, and then also in Palestine itself. But yeah, it's not like we're not housed in a specific or grounded in a specific geography in that way. Great question.
Any other questions coming up for folks? Monica's here for only the first 30 minutes, so this may be a good moment between now and 6:30.
No worries if not. I know that was a lot of information, so no worries. In that spirit, perhaps we can transition to just talking a little bit about what these prompts are. And again, I'm happy to kind of share my own thoughts if that's helpful, but I really want to be here to support y'all as you start to have this conversation. So my preference is that I would just kind of just answer any questions, offer any support needs, or identify any support needs that are coming up. But I want to also just very quickly, because again, I knew I would miss something important. Could you take us to the top of page 2? I think it's Kim who's screen sharing. Thank you so much. So in this green box, this is how we decided to name how we're seeking to embody radical love as part of our praxis, our movement, right? And I'll just read it very briefly. We uphold radical love as an act of liberation that grounds our collective resistance. It is both a militant defiance to colonial violence and a life-affirming revolutionary practice of building feminist futures. We build relationships based in love that sustain and nurture our people, land, and movement. Love enables us to contend with both intimate and state violences to which we are subjected, and to center healing as integral to restorative accountability. We believe that caring, nurturing, and resisting are inseparable and are essential to our joy, well-being, and rest. We practice radical love as a necessity for survival and as a principle for revolutionary world making. So yeah, this is just a launching point, because we are also going to be having our own internal conversations with these same prompting questions. And just for a little bit of added context, we're going to be meeting together. Whoever wants to join from this space, from Mamas and PFC, all together for the February 21st event, where we're going to be compiling folks' responses into this sort of like virtual gallery and do a virtual gallery and walkthrough. With a discussion component as well. And I will send the information about how you can sign up for this event, and also just more information around our call for submissions as well at the end. But yeah, okay, with that in mind, right below the green are the sort of prompting questions that we have started with. Amira did a beautiful job of like building out some of these prompts. Like all props to her. She was the one who was really holding that down. But yes, in the interest of time, I'll just focus on these first ones. So the first one reads, does anybody want to read? I know I'm kind of coming up on time, but I would love for folks to read if they're open.
Oh, we had actually, yeah, I don't know if Chella wants to go ahead and read the first one.
You know what? I'm gonna let her read it because I can't see it that big on my phone.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
definitely. No worries. I'm happy to read. So the first one reads, what does radical love mean to you? How does radical love show up in your movement work? And how does your understandings of radical love inform how you understand prison abolition in both Turtle Island and Palestine? How might radical love inspire and inform support for families of incarcerated peoples across these contexts? How does radical love help us make sense of our shared struggles? And so, very light casual questions we're asking here. But yeah, I guess I can, in the next few minutes, just offer any support if folks have anything coming up for them or have any questions about this process. And then I'll also find the links for the event and the call for submissions.
And just so folks know, Kim, Chela, and I are gonna each hold one of these prompts for the rest of the meeting, and then have at least a minimum of 5 minutes per prompt for each of you to doodle, draw, breathe with, or do whatever, or write. So we're gonna hold space for them deeper. But this is an opportunity to ask Monica anything about the process and the why behind this beautiful offering that you have brought.
So I'd like to offer folks more of these quotes. So as the GNS working group, we kind of went over, this beautiful document that Amira and Monica created. And we wanted to make the connections with Black History Month and how a lot of our ideas around radical love and our quotes, right, come from Bell Hooks, Angela Davis, Audre Lorde, Adrienne Marie Brown, right, all who are Black feminists, and really get us to think critically about love, because I feel like love, because it's feminized, it's seen as something that isn't important or political, right? When we know that not only love in relationships is political, but shows up with our, preferences and who has access to love or whatever, what have you. But also how do we show love to our communities through the work that we're engaging in? And I know Mariela, in our planning meeting for this meeting, had a really wonderful question come up for her. And it was, I think, where did I put it? How does it not show up in our movements as well, right? And yeah, so thank you, Monica, for walking us through that. Wanted to also pull up the virtual gallery that you were mentioning.
Of course. Thank you all for having me. Just like hearing your initial thoughts and questions, I'm so excited to see what kind of comes up and what makes its way to the gallery on the 21st. So yeah, I'm just really excited also for this opportunity for us to be in conversation together, and hopefully continue to build together in time to come. So yeah, I am so thankful to be here. Thanks again. And yeah, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to ping me. You can also add Amira if you'd like, or vice versa, but I just want to offer myself as a resource.
Thank you so much. I really do hope to stay in touch. It's my intention, and I hope I can join the Palestinian Feminist Collective down the line soon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Monica.
So yeah, we're gonna continue where Monica left us off, and I think we're gonna pass it to our comrade, dear friend Chela, to help us hold the first prompt. Is that right, Kim? I hope I'm not skipping anything.
Yeah, I think I was opening. As Kim announced earlier, so beautifully, and helped us ground ourselves in remembering that this is Black History Month, and a lot of the source that we are coming from has quoted a lot of black women, you know, and thinking of the labor of black women coming from a labor of love. Not only that, but also like how it's the opposite of love when we don't see the labor that black women do for the movement, for the work. Um, so the first thing we are going to think about as we have conversations around this, so get ready to mute yourselves or put yourselves in like a thing to get ready to say things. Our first question is, what does radical love look? Sorry, what does radical love mean to you? Anyone can raise their hand.
Is it okay if we just offer like a few minutes for folks to write reflections or draw?
Sure, sure.
And if you need the question in the chat, maybe we could paste it there. Let's see.
Gonna give you a few more minutes. 2 more minutes to finalize your thoughts or your drawings or your thing. Okay, finalize it. Go ahead. And we will push this on to the next prompt. The next prompt was you, Mariela, right?
Yes, and I'm wondering if anyone wants to share their answers. or a part of their answer, or you want to drop it in the chat. Really want to create a space for sharing with each other, no judgment. I think that's one way we could practice radical love here. And if anyone wants to speak it out loud or sing it out loud, however, I just want to hold Shakir. Radical love means both fighting for and forgiving each other. Yeah, feel free to drop your poetry or your wisdom in the chat or voice it. I'm on my phone, so I'm just trying to see if anybody else. We send you love, Shakir, for your courage. Shakir thought everyone was gonna share. I'll share, but I'm also facilitating. That's why I'm just trying to make space for more folks. The prompt for me made me think similar to the quote right there, Angela Davis, thinking about the roots, made me think of land and interconnectedness. Radical love for me understands how interconnected, dependent we are with all life. And it makes me think of the Mayan wisdom in La Quech, you are my other you. That's what I think about with radical love, just like we are each other. And so we want to love each other like that. That's what came up for me. Thank you for the prompt, Chela, and the Palestinian Feminist Collective that brought it. Maggie is imagining radical love as not transactional.
I think something that comes up to me in radical love is like making sure that all forms of labor are reciprocal. So I guess going off on the non-transactional, yeah, reciprocity, care, intention.
This feeling that you're sharing. Thank you.
Hi,
Feels
folks. This is Tiff. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
We hear you, Tiff.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. Sorry, I'm driving. Radical love. When I think about radical love, I think about just keeping yourself open to, like for me, it's keeping myself open to the possibility of change, keeping my mind open to learning new things, to challenging things within myself, and having to do things that need to be done for the people that we love and for what we are fighting for. So those are some of the things that come up for me when I think about radical love. And I was also, in thinking about this prompt earlier today, was thinking about who are some of the examples of radical love that I could think of that I learned from in my life. And my mom was one of those. And I also just want to name that Chela was one of those as well, in terms of what radical love looks like, and always just being ready to fight for like show up and be ready to fight for other folks who are oppressed. And yeah, so I was just thinking about that today as well.
Thank you, Tiff, for sharing that and moving with it as you're driving. And Eugene, thank you for your offering too. You said you copied it, but it means that I feel like that means that there's alignment. You said the radical love for you is rooted in freedom, forgiveness, and reciprocity. And Shakir's sending some love your way. Tiff, loving your answer. That radical love is something we learn from each other. All right. Thank you all for sharing, and feel free, like if your thoughts come up somewhere down the line in the meeting, feel free to drop them. It doesn't have to be in this very moment. And again, Monica left us with the invitation to go deeper with your answers, take more time with them, and submit them to this event. And so we'll just try to keep reminding about that. So, there's somewhere else that this space is building towards too. The prompt that I'm gonna guide us and facilitate is how does radical love show up in your movement work? And then I added, how does it not show up in our movements? Maybe that's the side of the question that you're feeling today, like me, or you want to lean on the first part of the question. We're gonna give space for that, and if it's okay, the guide that Monica, Amira, and the collective made offer some more detailed prompts to help us think through. So I'm gonna drop in the chat what I thought was related to this prompt. Maybe you're feeling this part. I don't know if you could see me when I go in the chat, but I hope you can hear me. Here's another offering related to the question. Free write about a time when you experienced conflict within an organizing space. Can you identify a core need that was clarified for you in the process? Can you identify a value, love, liberation, interdependence, that grounds this core need? How can this need be met? How can we make space for one another's core needs within organizing spaces? Again, how can we make space for one another's core needs within organizing spaces? So I just offer that as just some added questions related to the general prompt that we're offering right here. How does radical love show up in your movement work? If any of these questions are resonating with you or it reminds you of something related, feel free to go with wherever it takes you. It's 6:42 on my end. So, or 6:43, at 6:48, we're gonna circle back on these answers. Take advantage of the space in the moment. Maybe you had a hard moment today within your organizing spaces, or you had a beautiful, loving moment, and either one needs to be reflected on, processed, documented in a way. So take advantage of this space for that. And I'm gonna circle back with you at 6:48 to hear some of our answers. You don't have to write. You could also draw. You could just think or not. You could move. Maybe these questions make you want to just dance or move in your space. Most of you are off camera. Feel free to be and do what you got to do when you hear these questions. Feel free to step away from these questions if you need to, but thanks for joining us and leaning into them tonight. See you in 5. Just 2 more minutes.
To answer your question, Kim, I can't hear you. Oh no, I can't hear that. If you're on your laptop, there should be like a advanced settings, and that's where you're able to do it to like share your screen with music.
And start wrapping up your thoughts for the moment. Take just about like a minute or less. So there we are. All right. Welcome back. I hope you had some space to think about this and write or do about it in any way. Want to open up the space for any sharing. And if it helps, I can help us by sharing first, if that's okay. Just maybe hope to steer it up. I had a very like a moment this morning of a lot of reflection with another organization that I'm a co-founder of. I'm organizing a youth retreat for trans and queer youth, and helping mentor 3 young organizers in their leadership organizing it. And they want to include 10, 11, and 12-year-olds in the retreat. And I completely support their vision. And I brought this back to our staff, and we have co-directors at the moment, and they don't support the vision. And I just had so much heartbreak around that. And I had I pushed back a lot on it, and I did not accept a no on the behalf of the youth. And so tried to have dialogue, but running up against this when movements very much become too much into the nonprofit system, and some folks thinking and framework becomes more about liability. That to me is so heartbreaking and disappointing, and it makes me want to leave any organization that reaches that form of leadership. So I'm just been really heartbroken today in one of my movement spaces, one of the spaces that I helped co-found. And I'm not done with that battle. I'm gonna carry it into the week. I hope to win. And if not, I'm like, oh my God, I think I just can't. This might be my make or break moment. So I wanted to bring that as an example. For me, radical love is in that scenario is supporting the leadership and the visions of younger people who are trying to make space for. So yeah, if there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to dialogue more on it, and also bring in your pieces, what you were reflecting on with this question. We welcome it, and we can open the dialogue more. Anyone else want to share anything? Also, there's space again in the chat if you just feel like writing. I will look, and my child wants me to look, and I will. Anyone else have anything to share related to the prompts? To those questions?
Does anyone feel like they have, you know, experienced love not show up in our movements? Or how have you felt love show up in your movement work?
Hi, this is Tiff again. Yeah, when I think about this question, I was just thinking about how, like, for me, like radical love and showing radical love to each other um, in movement work and in the organizing space that I'm in has looked like being there for each other, supporting each other, being understanding of, I think, being open to the things that we all need. And I think that in the discussion guide that was actually created by the Palestinian Feminist Collective, they talk about like accessibility and like how are we making, I'm not sure if it was making our spaces accessible or making, I think it was that. I think it was like, how are we making the spaces and conversations more accessible, but how that is a part of radical love as well. And I think just acknowledging that, you know, all of that, I feel like something that I've experienced is that, you know, we sometimes do get caught up in having to get things done, feeling those external pressures of having to produce something or having to meet a deadline. And just, I think part of radical love in movement work, again, for myself, is kind of pushing back on that and taking more time to be doing that learning about what is it that folks need, why is something accessible to someone or not accessible, and how we are working to change that, which I think is something that we sometimes don't spend a lot of time on. And again, I guess that's speaking for myself. So those are just some of my thoughts.
Thank you, Tiff. Eugene also mentioned in the chat, I believe radical love is the presence of compassion and seeing one another as an extension of ourselves. And with that, assuming the best intentions of comrades in the struggle, being patient with one another and prioritizing the shared collective struggle over one's ego, pride, and vanity. Yeah, definitely. Also, I feel like love in movement spaces, well, it kind of leads us to our next question, but I don't know. I feel like love in movement spaces should acknowledge like difference and I guess difference in power too, right? So saying yes, we are in a collective struggle, but also, you know, how do I like see beyond my own individualness, right? And think about other people's positionalities and vulnerabilities to violence. Or how am I, right? I don't know. I think oftentimes we think of the people we organize with as, you know, all the, I guess, the same when different people have different things going on and, you know, people have traumas. And I feel like organizing is probably like being part of several relationships, right? Where you have to, think about how you either trigger people or you make people feel unloved. and our commitment to the same struggle, I feel, also should ground us, and recommit, right, to I don't know, rethink our own, the harm that we cause, I guess. And this is just coming from today reviewing our statement of principles, and just previous conversations that we've been having here in Gender and Sexuality about Stop LAPD Spying, and how we could, always stay grounded back to our statement of principles and keep each other accountable for the harm that we do cause one another. Because within our collectives, we have all kinds of different folks, who have different experiences and are bound to cause harm. But I feel like, yeah, I don't know, our commitment to liberation, I think, should, ground us into holding ourselves accountable there. That's what I meant to say.
Thank you, Kim. I also wanted to name something similar and let folks know in this space, if you didn't already know, that the Gender and Sexuality Working Group or Committee in the organization was created for specifically these conversations of harm within our coalition. How do we take care of each other? How do we hold each other accountable? How do we address gender depression within policing amongst ourselves as we're fighting this the state oppression? How does it show up between us? So just want folks to know, like, what the space was, where it came from, and where you're at, and hoping that any of your organizing spaces too have that arm, or have that part, are practicing this a very important part of the work of how we take care of each other, and love each other, by doing accountability healing work, by working through our conflict. And it's very much related to abolitionist thinking and abolitionist practice, which again leads us to our next question, I believe. But I do want to ask if there's anyone else who, who's feeling this and wants to share any other reflection, or you had another moment, another scenario you want to share. Just gonna hold a moment to see if anybody else in the chat or out loud. And if not now, it could come up later. There's one more prompt we want to move together with, so I'm gonna pass it back to Kim, and everyone feel free to chime in at any point.
Yeah, so we want the third question of the Palestinian Feminist Collective Guide on radical love is: how does radical love inform your understanding of prison abolition in both Turtle Island, the US and Canada, and Palestine? How does radical love inspire and inform support for families of incarcerated people across these contexts? How does radical love help us make sense of our shared struggles? And there was also a really great quote from Bell Hooks that says, "The moment we choose to love, we begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom, to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. That action is a testimony of love as the practice of freedom." So something to keep in mind as we take the next 3 minutes to think about any thoughts or feelings that come up with this question. Yeah, and we'd love to hear about the type of work that that everybody else is engaging in terms of prison abolition. And yeah, I feel like oftentimes, because all of these things are so violent, it's hard to understand, I guess, right, that all of this is a labor of love, and us thinking about abolition is investing love in our communities. Do folks feel ready to share? How does radical love inform your understanding of prison abolition? I think personally, for the work that we do in GNS, radical love informs our understanding of prison abolition by centering people who are most vulnerable, not only to state violence, but to like intra-community violence. So women, children, thinking about trans women and specifically gender nonconforming folks who face violence within our communities as well. So specifically centering that when we look at policing and abolition. Yeah, does anyone else want to share? Does anyone else want to share? No? Abolition and love.
Yeah, hi folks. Yeah, I just wanted to share that when in terms of organizing, when I think about radical love and in organizing to support families and in terms of like getting care for people, the way that I think about it is in terms of like mutual aid programs. And like when we offer mutual aid, when we offer direct aid, that is a form of radical love. And I think that's some of the work that the organizations that have been involved in like the Palestinian Feminist Collective and some of the organizations that they've been linked with have been kind of looking more at like the mutual aid and kind of how that's being centered in their work. And just thinking about that in terms of radical love, I think about how that is really, again, kind of getting to, it's about centering what are the needs of a family or a person or a community, and then like getting right to that, like versus getting caught up in some of these other things that sometimes get in the way or that hinder people getting that aid or receiving it, or us being sometimes willing to give that or be available to it. And so just thinking about like mutual aid, I think is very much a part of radical love and direct aid.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was just thinking, if just a world without prisons, walls, all this violence just would make a lot of space for love. Yeah, that was one thing I was thinking about. And the other is with the question around prisons and what you were sharing, Tiff, when my brother was incarcerated, I just felt very wounded, and I can only imagine how he felt inside and how folks feel inside. So the receiving love from people in terms of like showing up for court or just checking in, it was so like necessary to our livelihood as a family, to wanting to stay out here, to wanting to keep fighting or stay alive. So yeah, that's what I think radical love and abolition are very much tied together, and in my experience.
Eugene says, oh, bye Maggie, thanks for joining us. Eugene says, I'd say radical love guides my prison abolition work. The tenets of radical love are necessary in the work of prison abolition. Otherwise, we get stuck with the same way of thinking and systems that inform them that we have now. Definitely. Well, thank you all for engaging in this conversation around radical love on February, and this being our very first gender and sexuality webinar of the year. So really intentionally starting off the year deep, right? Not being afraid of emotion. And Audre Lorde has this great quote that says, like Western thinkers say, I think, therefore I am. And she's like, I say, I feel, therefore I am. And it's like, right, I don't know. I feel like carcerality, but overall policing takes so much from us. Bye, Eugene. Thanks for joining. But yeah, just wanted to give an opportunity for folks who have any updates. For the Gender and Sexuality Working Group, we're coming up on a year already of the last Super Bowl. And we wanted to start a report. So we've been in collaboration with SWAP LA and the US Prostitutes Network in thinking about what we can do with some public records requests that we are still trying to get information about, basically how the Super Bowl increases policing, particularly in sex work raids. So I don't know, Tiff, if you wanted to kind of give us a little recap on that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, hi folks. So as Kim said, and I actually was completely unaware that the Super Bowl was this weekend, which I I'm fine with not knowing that. But yeah, so the group, and I guess it's a working group, the surveillance of sex workers. And so we've had this going on, yeah, as you said, for about a year now. And I think, I can't remember how it was started, but I think we were invited to participate in, I think it was by US Pros, or and also with SWAP LA was involved at some point, or became joined very quickly, but it was around, I think, the Super Bowl last year, and how all of these false narratives that get put out about sex work to do with sporting mega events, and how these are really opportunities for police and for federal agencies as well to be investing in the policing and surveillance of sex workers, and under this narrative of human trafficking, and kind of making this conflating the two issues of human trafficking, which is a very real issue for folks, and something that does happen, but kind of conflating that with sex work, which is something different. And so, yeah, again, just seeing how the Super Bowl is used as a time that police come together. They have these massive raids that they'll conduct. Usually the sheriff's department will have, I forget what they call it, Operation, it's Enduring Freedom or some shit, or Rescuing Innocence or something. But they have it every year, and it's it'll be 64 different agencies coming together to do this, basically surveillance, raids, stings, crackdowns on essentially folks that are in the area. This very much impacts Black and poor communities the most. It impacts the communities around these events, which already have had a lot of trauma being put on them by the fact that these stadiums are in the area. And so, so part of what we were invited to do last year was to learn more about the actual policing that takes place around these events, how that does impact sex workers, the types of programs that are launched, the different ways that people are surveilled, and also what are the outcomes for people, what are the arrests, what are the rates of arrests, what are the actual things that come from this. And so we have been working with US Pros and SWAP, and that's a group that is continuing to meet off and on. And what else? And I'll just name that NE was very much, we mentioned NE as a part of this group, and NE was very much, I think, driving a lot of that work for a while, and was someone who helped us put in a PRA to get more information about that. So that's part of what we've done in that working group, and we're continuing that work to be, again, learning more about how people are policed, and then to be also pushing back on the narratives around human trafficking and sex work, and the justification of policing of that. So I hope that all made sense. Hey, Pancake. I didn't say that folks should join us if they like. We are going to be, I'm not sure when our next meeting is, but we have been meeting about every month or so and checking in with each other. We have been keeping it moving. There was a presentation at the Police Commission today that would have been to do with the Human Trafficking Task Force, and just getting updates from the police. It's always their time that they pitch for asking for more money. And yeah, so this is something that is ongoing. If folks are interested in joining that group, then let us know, send us an email.
Thanks, Tiff, for that. Yeah, for the update. One thing I wanted to add, and I also hadn't realized that it had been a year since Super Bowl, or that it's coming up again. So that it's just a time thing. So one thing on that exact note is thinking about, like, so is what y'all are studying kind of like using last year, because the Super Bowl moves around, right? It's like in Houston this year or something. Yeah. So like using last year's Super Bowl as kind of an example of like like how they operate and what the like or even like how like operate specifically like during that time, but then also maybe how they gathered more resources that they're going to keep using to criminalize sex workers and to criminalize people or surveil and all of that. Plus possibly with the Olympics or others, it's like even if the Super Bowl isn't happening again, the Olympics and the World Cup is coming to LA too. So it's just like, is it kind of like looking at 2022 or a year ago as like something to kind of then to like have like analysis and warnings and stuff for the future? Is that kind of the framing?
I hadn't, Kim is nodding yes, so I don't know if you want to say anything, Kim, but I mean, it's definitely to be learning more about like, yeah, I think I hadn't been thinking about it that way in terms of like applying it to future events, but it's very much like learning more about, yeah, what is it they're doing, the deployments, the operations, the tactics, and then also, so yeah, it's kind of like that operational stuff, but then it's also like understanding, and we want to be lifting up like who is harmed by this, what is the actual harm, because it's like I think it was kind of initiated by these press conferences and these announcements around the Super Bowl where they're talking about like, oh, these are all the arrests that we've made and like these are the stings that we're conducting. So you hear that, that side from the state about what is going on with policing, and then to actually be hearing from sex workers themselves, like what is the actual impact, who is being arrested. You see these huge things of like, we made, 700 arrests and 14 rescues or things like that. And so to kind of get under that and be like, okay, did we know that this is like majority Black women are being arrested, that these are majority young Black women? And then, so I think kind of digging more into who is being impacted versus just taking like the state's narrative around that. And kind of uplifting the voices of sex workers who are saying, these are the narratives that we're consistently hearing around policing and these super mega events, that we want to be kind of tearing down and challenging. So it's like, it's partly that. And then you're right, Shakir, it's also learning more about all of the ways that they're doing this shit, and then like how are they sharing this information with each other? Like I think one of the things we learned was that ICE was a big part of it. They brought in kind of like the surveillance of the ports. They were like, oh, this is a time that people, human trafficking increases in the port area and people are getting smuggled in, so they kind of use it as a justification to be adding more surveillance and policing there at the ports. So I think just learning more about all of these different types of tactics, and then understanding that is going to be escalated, to your point, 2028, the Olympics, and then just on an everyday basis, like in the Figueroa corridor every day, they do the policing of sex workers, and like, so again, like in the future around these big events, but then also just the day-to-day.
That makes sense. Yeah, like using the big event as a like kind of as an example of like a concentration of what happens every day, every week. And also I wonder, especially now that it like, in a way it's been a year, so it's like kind of the past, but also that maybe means like you can look at it from another perspective of, back then I'm sure they were making these claims of, oh, we like rescued this many people or we prevented this much, whatever. But now if you look at even those individuals or the impact on specific places a year later, we can actually probably know or say something about, okay, well, yeah, that's what they're saying back then, but like these 16 people or whoever that they rescued, here's what's actually going on. Or like, because it's like a lot of the harms, they actually take some time, like someone getting deported or someone getting incarcerated or whatever, prosecuted. It might not happen immediately, but it kind of takes a year or whatever, at least. So like now, like those are kind of part of the harms. and the aftermath and the consequences that we can document too, maybe.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. And then I'm also thinking about how, like, another part of it that we've been learning about is who are the cops partners in this, like the nonprofit organizations like Saving Innocence and like whoever their other, I can't remember all the names of the groups, but that are usually brought out every year and part of these press conferences. And they're saying, yes, we are here to be, we are appalled by, what is happening to children. And we're so glad that these, cops are rescuing children from this. So then kind of thinking about like getting more information about you say that these people, like how many rescues you have, and just kind of getting at what does that actually mean, and learning more about that and how these nonprofits operate, because the number of them are actually run by cops. They're run by retired cops. They're like cops that used to be in vice units. And typically what rescue means is that somebody said, yes, I would like to go to this organization and be housed there instead of getting arrested. It doesn't necessarily mean that, anything happened beyond that. So yeah, I think to your point again, like kind of following through what are the actual outcomes that they're talking about, and probably also learning more from folks who have gone through that, and also acknowledging that human trafficking is something that is real, and there are people who are impacted by that as well. But as we know, these types of raids and policing and organizations are not a way to be of service to folks.
Thank you for that. I'm wondering if any of this is already documented on behalf of the coalition, or any summary. Like, everything you said is really great to share with some folks in Arizona who are organizers, and the Super Bowl is about to be there this Sunday. At least I know of one event happening on Friday before the Super Bowl in Arizona, where maybe some of our documents or our findings could exist to help at least. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. And Shakir also mentioned the World Cup and Olympics. I feel like this work can help us build towards those big moments coming in LA in a few years. Thanks.
Yeah, so the idea when we started brainstorming this report was to kind of treat the Super Bowl like a mini Olympics, because we saw so many intense policing, and Hamid also would bring up the fact that these events are like a national security situation where federal police are coming in. That's why we have ICE presence. So this title of a national security event or something, I think that's what it's called, essentially brings in a lot of flexibility and freedom for all types of branches of policing. So yeah, we were definitely thinking of treating the Super Bowl basically like a case study and a mini version of how the Olympics and the World Cup are gonna really exacerbate that narrative too of human trafficking, because it's sporting events, men from all over the world are coming to the US. And yeah, it's our efforts to really dispel the argument around human trafficking and sex work as two distinct things, right? A lot of times, people who are swept up in raids are sex workers that are consensually working, right? That's why we call it sex work. Sex workers who are consensually working, just in California, right? We had SB 357, that just became effective January 1st, and eliminates the crime of loitering in public place with the intent to commit prostitution, which was also called standing while trans or standing while Black, because it disproportionately affected Black trans women. So yeah, thinking about the Super Bowl in that way is a really important framing for us. And I feel like yeah, we should maybe set up a meeting with folks from Arizona to kind of go over some of the things that we found. I know we didn't get that many things, right, in our
Right.
but we
Yeah, we
did
got
get
virtual.
some records of arrests, I want to say. But yes, we have a folder. It has record of arrest, so that's why we don't share it or screen share it. It has people's like information. But yeah, we have materials. Tiff has also been kind of keeping a log of police commissioner meetings, and every time they mention human trafficking, it's always couched under this right assumption that they're doing good. And despite human trafficking also being a labor issue, garment industry issue, like domestic worker issue, but sex work is right where people like to focus in on. So yeah, I feel like it's a lot of things that we want to do in one thing. Like we want to destigmatize, decriminalize sex work, but at the same time, we're saying like, yes, human trafficking is a thing. We're not saying it doesn't exist. But the way that the police use it, right, they're basically wasting resources to actually tackle any type of human trafficking and labor, and criminalizing consenting adults that are engaging in sex work because it's still criminalized.
I was gonna say just real quick, Kim, like, because I hadn't realized when you just mentioned that we have like kind of these names of people who are arrested. And yeah, we're trying to be careful about not sharing those and bringing more like the whole stigma and the whole point of the expanding that effect. But I wonder, like, that could even be a way, because that's to know that, and the arrest from that period, there could be kind of an analysis about, yeah, like I was saying, like where even each of those individuals are now a year later or whatever. I mean, I know, for example, I'm thinking of parallel with the raid in Echo Park in March 2021. Like people later, like a year later or something, did an analysis of, because the state, just like they're claiming here, oh, we rescued all these people, the state also claimed it was the biggest housing operation and they housed 100, 200 something people. But when people actually, and it was a lot of work, I think, probably to like go and track down who that was, it showed that no, like it was actually like only 3 people who have any permanent support, any permanent housing, and 6 people have died. And this, like, so like that's a really powerful way to debunk what is actually going on when they say, that we clamped down on trafficking or we rescued X number of people.
Yeah, and also seeing some of the some of the ties that some of these nonprofits that are claiming to do this rescuing have to things like real estate and I think sporting events. Like there were even some ties from like people who are on the board of some of these organizations to like the building of the stadium or like some shit like that. So just like kind of taking a closer look at like who are these people as well. But yeah.
If you want to chat about how to look up, like, because it's also not hard to look up, at least in some places, like what's happening with someone's case. So I can help you with that too, of just kind of explaining how to do that.
That would be cool to learn
Yes.
more about. Sorry, I keep swearing, by the way. I forget that we're recording and you're not supposed to swear on recordings, are you?
Yeah, it's against the law.
Add it to the list.
Radical love.
To the cases. Well, yeah, that's really exciting work. So for folks who want to engage in that and help us, right, track down, debunk all of these things, please make sure to email us. I feel like gendered work is almost, never prioritized. So this, yeah, just really invested in this project and moving it forward. So we also wanted to make space for, I know Matios was working with DWAC,
Yeah, both Matios and Hamid, I thought they would eventually there's public comment going on in the Long Beach
Mhm.
City Council about automated license plate readers, so I know they've been stuck there. The DUAC stuff, yeah, we've been working with Victoria, as many of you know, on this report, and I think they're like, I don't know who all, I haven't seen it, but there's folks that are sharing updates on or edits on that, and I think we talked about, yeah, maybe trying to launch it at a next month at one of these meetings, at a Tuesday meeting.
Cool. So yeah, cool. So maybe we could just connect and organize that. So it's really exciting and intersecting work on how Child Protective Services serves as a branch of carcerality policing, and the way that we see particularly Black and Brown families affected by family separation, and yeah, and everything ties back to radical love of our families, of our communities, of our communities in general. If you belong to sex working communities, if you belong to your family as a community. So we're really doing this. Yeah, so I think that's it. If nobody else has any updates, do folks have any updates that they want to share? If not, we could go ahead and close with an affirmation. Mariela,
We open this way, and I think it's good to close again. After this conversation that we had, is, what is one way you're going to practice radical love today, tomorrow, going into tomorrow, having had this conversation, hopefully it inspired something you need to do or want to do or revisit and later this week. But take a moment and think about that, and yeah, if you want to offer it in the chat or with each other out loud. I can start related to what I shared earlier with some of my struggles with another organization I'm part of. I'm gonna have some check-ins with some of the folks, and I want to prevent some heartbreak for the younger people by checking in with the leadership in our organization to see if they're actually willing to shift and change before I invite young people into the conversation, because I don't want to set up younger folks for heartbreak. And yeah, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna take some of those steps before I invite them into the space. I want to check in if the leadership is actually willing to listen and shift, and if they're not, I'm gonna have to make some radical changes too. So anyway, this tonight helped me reflect on it. So I appreciate the space. Love the youth, y'all. Love each other. Love the younger generations, and make way for them. Anyone else? Any closing reflections on how you may keep on practicing radical love, or start practicing if you haven't?
I'm thinking of, there's a source of like a lot of patriarchal bullshit coming from a particular person in my life. And so I'm just thinking about like radical love for myself means like just shutting that out, and like literally just like putting up almost just a screen to that, and like just like not letting that in. Like I don't have an obligation to let that in. I think just radical love for myself is being certain in myself and like understanding that I don't need to listen to that. Yeah. So that's it for me.
I love that, Tiff. Yes. Setting boundaries against patriarchal conversations or things. I think for me is I'm gonna practice radical love with myself by being more disciplined because I have ADHD and I never get on time and I'm always kind of running around like a chicken without a head. So I've been trying to be more disciplined and reconceptualize discipline as love for myself because I hate discipline and I hate routine, but we're trying. So yeah, anybody else?
Yes, just speaking my truth, speaking my truth and standing firm in that, against everything, knowing that there's going to be blowback, but still sticking to my truth and sticking to my guns. Because at the end of the day, let's be real, I'm not doing this for me anymore. I'm doing this for future generations so that they don't have to deal with the bullshit that I'm dealing with. So yeah, that's what I think how I'm gonna enact that.
All right, well, thank you folks for thinking through with us and meditating on love with us as we build towards better futures, yeah, for our communities, for our families, and for ourselves. So have a good night and join us next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.